At 11:17 on a Tuesday morning, Eli Carter put both hands on the edge of his lunch tray and tried to slide it backward without making a sound. The tray had a hot chicken sandwich, green beans, an apple, and a carton of milk. It was more food than he had seen on his kitchen table that morning. He had chosen every part of it carefully, the way children choose things when they already know they might have to put them back. Althea Grant saw the cafeteria screen turn yellow. Account hold. It was only 2 words. But in a room full of children, 2 words could do a great deal of damage. Eli was 8 years old, narrow in the shoulders, wearing a gray coat that still held drops of rain along the sleeves. He stared at the screen, then at the people behind him. His face did not crumple. That almost made it worse. He had already learned how to look like he did not need anything. "I'll just get water," he said. Althea had worked the lunch line at Hollis Elementary for 14 years. She knew the difference between a child who forgot a lunch and a child who had practiced being hungry. The first kind looked embarrassed. The second kind looked prepared. She reached across the register before he could move the tray. "You keep that where it is," she said. "My grandma said not to make trouble." "A sandwich is not trouble." Althea touched her employee card to the scanner. The machine beeped once. Her own staff meal credit covered the tray. It was not something she did often. Bright Plate Services, the company that ran Hollis's cafeteria, had rules for everything. Portions, counts, waste, trays, gloves, breaks. Althea respected rules when rules protected people. This one did not. Eli looked at her as if she had done something much larger than pay for lunch. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he reached inside his coat pocket, probably looking for the dollar bill his grandmother had given him, and something small slipped through his fingers. It hit the tile with a hard plastic click. The purple token spun once, twice. It came to rest near Althea's shoe. It was the size of a poker chip, faded at the edges. A white star had been scratched into one side by hand. On the other side, beneath years of wear, was a stamped number, P41. Althea stopped breathing. Across the cafeteria, a man in a navy quarter zip turned so quickly that his coffee splashed over the rim of his paper cup. Derek Vaughn had been standing beside the new food waste display, talking to the assistant principal about Bright Plate's upcoming contract renewal. He was not supposed to be watching one child's tray, but now he was watching the token. "Where did he get that?" Derek asked. The room did not go silent all at once. Spoons still hit plastic bowls. A chair scraped somewhere near the windows. But the part of the room around Althea seemed to stop. She bent slowly and picked up the token. The white star was rough beneath her thumb. Her sister had made stars like that. Naya had scratched them into anything she wanted someone to find later. A folder, a jar lid, the back of a grocery list, one small mark, not pretty, not neat, but hers. Derek came closer. "Hand that to me," he said. Althea looked up at him. "Why?" "It is not valid. I did not ask if it was valid. I asked why." His smile arrived a second late. "It is company property." Eli's fingers tightened around the edge of his tray. Althea closed her hand over the token. "Then bring me a receipt," she said. "I will sign that I gave it to you." Derek's face changed so slightly that a person who did not know him might have missed it. Althea had known him for less than a year. That was long enough to understand that he disliked being asked for anything in writing. "Come to the office," he said. Althea looked at Eli. "You sit down and eat while it is hot." He nodded, but he did not move until she pointed to an empty table near the wall. That was when Derek said, "Low enough for the adults, but not low enough for the children. Clear your station first. You are done for today." Althea stood still. "You are firing me over a tray?" "I'm ending your shift because you made an unauthorized transaction and refused to surrender a legacy credit item. We will discuss the rest in private." She looked down at the purple token in her hand. Naya had been dead for 6 years. Althea had not heard anyone call one of those old tokens a legacy credit item since the week her sister was buried. And suddenly the lunch tray was no longer the strangest thing in the room. Althea Grant was 48 years old, a black woman with careful hands and a habit of keeping every receipt in the same drawer. She lived alone in a 2-bedroom apartment on the west side of Cleveland, though one of the rooms was mostly boxes, a folding table, and the things she had not been able to decide whether to keep after Nia died. Her life did not look dramatic from the outside. She got up before dawn. She put coffee in a thermos. She wore the same black shoes until the soles became thin enough to feel every crack in the sidewalk. She knew which children came through the line hungry on Mondays, which ones saved apples in their backpacks, which ones asked for extra napkins because there was no paper towel at home. Althea did not tell herself that she was saving anyone. She did not like that kind of talk. Most days she was just doing a job in a place where children needed food. but Nia had believed small things mattered. Nia Grant had been 3 years younger and impossible to hurry. She had worked as a family outreach aide at Hollis when the school still handled its own cafeteria. She was the one who noticed that children with unpaid balances began arriving late to lunch. They waited until lines were short. They drank water before they took a tray. They learned to look at the floor while adults decided whether they were eligible to eat. Nia hated that. She went to the parent association with a purple folder, a list of quiet donations, and an idea simple enough for everyone to understand. Parents who could afford it would give what they could. The money would be kept separate. The cafeteria would issue numbered purple tokens. 1 token meant 1 hot meal. No announcements. No questions. No child made to explain a private problem in front of another child. They called it Nia's table only after the first parent wrote the words on a flyer. Nia thought the name was too much. She said it was a table, not a monument. There were 60 tokens in the first batch. Nia gave each one a number. She kept a handwritten ledger because she trusted a pencil more than a promise from a machine. P41 had been different. Nia had set it aside for Cora Carter, the night custodian who had helped her carry boxes, wash trays, and find parents who were too proud to ask for help. For the day somebody needs it before the paperwork catches up, Nia had told Cora. Althea knew that much, or she had known it once. After Nia got sick, after the hospital rooms, after the funeral, the school brought in bright plate services. The purple tokens disappeared. The folder disappeared. People said the program had ended because the new vendor had a different system. Althea had believed them. Now Derek Vaughn was telling her that P41 belonged to his company. In the cafeteria office, he placed a termination form on the desk without sitting down. The room smelled like toner, burnt coffee, and the lemon cleaner used on the floors. Through the glass window, Althea could still see the lunch line moving. Children passed with trays. They did not know that a person could lose a job over a purple piece of plastic. "You used your employee credit for a student meal," Derek said. "That is a policy violation. I used my own credit. It is not transferable. Then write that. Do not write that I stole anything." He tapped the paper with one finger. No one said stole. Althea read the form. The words were careful: unauthorized distribution, failure to follow point-of-service procedure, refusal to surrender company property. There it was again, company property. "This token was part of Nia's table," Althea said. "That program ended years ago. Then why do you know its number?" Derek leaned back against the desk. His expression did not move, but the silence between them did. "You are making a bad decision, Althea. I asked for a receipt. You are not an investigator. No, I am the woman who gave a hungry boy a sandwich." For the first time, Derek looked tired rather than annoyed. It was not sympathy. It was the look of a person who had expected something easy to remain easy. "Sign the form," he said. "You will be paid through today, and if I do not, then you will still be terminated." Althea put the paper down. "I will not sign a lie." He gathered it, stamped the corner, and slid a copy toward her. "Your locker will be available after 3. She left the office with her badge in one hand and P41 in the other. At the end of the lunch period, Eli was still sitting at the table near the wall. The chicken sandwich was gone. The apple was gone. His milk carton had been folded flat with both thumbs, exactly the way children did when they were trying not to cry. His grandmother was waiting near the cafeteria doors. Cora Carter was 66, small and straight-backed, with silver hair pulled into a knot at the base of her neck. She had cleaned Hollis for 27 years before her knees gave out. Althea knew her face from years of passing in dim hallways before sunrise. "I am sorry about the token," Cora said when Eli had gone ahead of them. "I told him it was for a meal. I did not know somebody would make all that fuss." Althea held it out. "Where did you get this?" Cora looked at the white star. Her mouth tightened. "Come by after school," she said. "There are things you need to see." Cora's apartment was on the first floor of a brick building behind a tire shop. The kitchen was warm and narrow. A pot of beans sat on the stove. There were photos on the refrigerator held up by magnets shaped like fruit. Eli in a too large graduation cap from kindergarten. A younger woman with the same eyes, Cora in a blue uniform standing beside a floor buffer. Eli sat at the table with a coloring book, while Cora opened a metal recipe tin from the top shelf of a cabinet. The tin had once held butter cookies. Now it held index cards, old church programs, folded coupons, and a rubber-banded stack of recipes written in different hands. At the bottom was a card the color of weak tea. The handwriting was Nia's: 1 token, 1 hot meal, no questions. Below that, in smaller letters, P41 Emergency Reserve, Cora Carter. Althea sat down slowly. "She gave it to me the last week before she got too sick to come in," Cora said. "She said not to use it just because somebody forgot lunch. She said to keep it for the child who was trying hardest not to be noticed." Eli looked up from the coloring book. "Grandma said my card was messed up because we moved." "It is messed up," Cora said. But that is not your fault. He pressed a purple crayon to the paper. I did not want them to call Mom at work. Althea felt something turn over in her chest. Eli's mother, Cora explained, had been working nights at a warehouse since the apartment building she rented changed owners. Eli had been staying with Cora until his mother could get steady hours and find a place that did not move them every few weeks. The school had sent a balance hold letter after an enrollment address changed. Cora had called twice. She had been told the account would be reviewed. In the meantime, Eli had begun taking crackers from home instead of asking for lunch. This morning he found the token, Cora said. I told him it was not money. I told him it was a promise. I thought maybe somebody at Hollis would remember. Althea turned the card over on the back. Nia had drawn a small white star in pen, the same rough star on P of 41. Derek remembered, Althea said. That is what worries me. The next morning, Althea did not go to Hollis for work. She went there with a canvas bag, a copy of her termination form, and the purple token sealed in a clear sandwich pouch. Cora had photographed both sides of it on her phone before Althea left. Althea wrote the date, the time, and Cora's name on a piece of paper and placed it behind the token. She was not an investigator, but she knew what happened to small things when nobody marked where they came from. Felicia Brooks met her outside the Parent Association office. Felicia was the kind of woman who carried a calendar, a spare pen, and a phone charger in the same canvas tote. Her daughter had graduated from Hollis 2 years earlier, but Felicia stayed because she believed schools did not get better when the people who cared about them left. Althea showed her the token and Nia's card. Felicia did not say, "That cannot be right." She looked at the number, she looked at the star. Then she unlocked the office. The Parent Association kept old records in a metal cabinet that had been painted beige so many times the drawers stuck in humid weather. Felicia pulled out binders one by one, fundraisers, book fairs, winter coats, playground repairs. At the back of the lowest drawer, they found a thin purple folder with Nia's handwriting on the tab. Nia's table. Althea had to put one hand on the filing cabinet to steady herself. Inside were the original flyers, donation notes, and a photograph taken in the cafeteria before Brightplate came. Nia stood in the center wearing a purple apron over a navy dress. In one hand, she held a box of tokens. In the other, a paper sign that read, "No child should have to explain hunger." Althea stared at the photo for a long time. Nia had never liked having her picture taken. In every family photograph, she was the person half turned away, reaching for somebody's coat or fixing a plate. Here, she was looking directly at the camera, almost embarrassed by how proud she was. Felicia opened the old fund log. 60 tokens, she said. Parents donated $18,000 the first year. It says the money was restricted for emergency meals and account holds. What happened when Brightplate came in? Felicia turned another page. A printed transition memo had been stapled inside the folder. All unused tokens to be inventoried. Remaining restricted balance to be maintained for designated student meal support. At the bottom was a vendor acceptance line. Derek Vaughn. Althea touched his name with one finger. He signed for this. Felicia nodded slowly. 3 years ago. There was one other note in the file written by Nia in blue ink. P41 held with Cora. Do not close reserve until the school no longer needs it. The sentence sat there quietly. It did not accuse anyone. It did not explain anything. But it made one thing impossible to deny. Derek had known exactly what P41 was. Felicia made copies of the pages that belonged to the Parent Association. She did not take school records. She did not promise Althea that a folder could fix what had happened. She only said, "We need someone who remembers the inventory." Walter Ives remembered it. He lived on the second floor of a small building above a florist shop, where the hallway always smelled faintly of damp soil and carnations. He had been Hollis's cafeteria manager before retiring. A white-haired man with a careful voice and hands that still moved as if he were counting trays. When Althea said Nia's table, Walter closed his eyes. "I wondered when that name would come back," he said. He disappeared into a bedroom and returned with a plastic storage bin. Inside were old pension papers, a stained apron, a stack of holiday cards from students, and a carbon copy of an inventory sheet with his signature at the bottom. The list ran from P01 to P60. Most of the tokens were marked "Return to Vendor Transition Box." P41 was different. Emergency Reserve, Cora Carter, not redeemed. Walter looked at the line until his eyes turned wet. "Nia made me write that twice," he said. "She said somebody would lose the first copy and then say the reserve never existed." Althea could almost hear her sister saying it. Not angry, just practical. "What did Derek do with the list?" she asked. Walter tapped the signature page. He signed for the transition file, said Brightplate was moving everything into one system. I did not like it, but I was 3 weeks from retirement. I told myself it was not my fight anymore. Did you ever see a reconciliation? No, I asked once. Somebody said the program had been retired. He looked at P41 again. If that token is in your hand, then someone put a mark beside a number they should not have touched. That afternoon, Felicia spread 3 years of parent association statements across a table in the basement of Hollis's public library. The pages were not secret. They were the kind of documents people ignored because they had no photographs, no children, no urgent voice asking them to look. But Althea looked. Nia's table had received donations after Nia died. Not as much as the first year. $100 from a church group. $50 from a family whose child had graduated. $200 from an anonymous donor every December. The fund had not vanished. Yet in the yearly school report, the number of emergency meals charged to Nia's table had fallen almost to nothing. Felicia turned the pages side by side. "This makes no sense," she said. The money kept coming in. Maybe no one needed it. Felicia looked at Althea, at Hollis. Althea did not answer. She thought of Eli pushing his tray backward. She thought of all the children who had learned to carry crackers in their pockets. Cora's balance hold letter was folded into the recipe tin when Althea came back that evening. It was not a dramatic document. It did not use cruel language. It said the account required review after a change in household information. It asked the guardian to contact the school. It said the system might limit meal options until the matter was resolved. But Eli had understood it in the language children always understood. "No food for you." "I called," Cora said. "I called twice. First, they said wait. Then they said there was a balance from the old address that had to be checked. I told them he is 8. I told them he cannot check an address." Althea sat at Cora's kitchen table and read the letter again. "How many other children got one of these?" she asked. Cora shook her head. "You think I know?" That was the moment the story became larger than Althea's job. It was no longer only about a token, or Nia, or the quiet humiliation in a cafeteria line. It was about money that had been given so children would not have to feel that way, and the people who had decided a report mattered more than a meal. Felicia did not have the power to demand Brightplate's private files. Althea did not have the right to see student account data. So they stayed inside the lines they could stand on. Felicia checked the public agenda for the upcoming Hollis School Board meeting. Brightplate's renewal was listed under contracts. Attached to the public packet was a summary reconciliation for legacy meal support programs. The packet was 73 pages long. P41 appeared on page 48. Althea saw it before Felicia did. Purple token P41, redeemed. Date, October 14th. Time, 11:42 a.m. Then on the next line, remaining legacy token inventory destroyed and fund balance transferred for administrative recovery. Althea looked at the calendar. October 14th had been a teacher workday. Hollis had been closed to students. The cafeteria had not served lunch. P41 had supposedly fed someone in a building with no children in it. Felicia read the page twice. "This is not enough to prove where the money went," she said. "No," Althea said. She took the sandwich pouch from her bag and set P41 beside the printed page. "But it proves someone lied about this token. For 2 days nothing happened." Althea called the number on her termination paperwork to ask how to retrieve her final wage statement. She received a short email saying a representative would contact her. Her health coverage would end at the close of the month. Her rent was due in 11 days. She began doing the arithmetic people did when they had no room for surprise. Rent, electric bill, phone. The prescription she had been postponing because the bottle still had 6 pills left. She did not panic. Althea had survived harder months than this. But every calculation ended with the same hard fact. She had been fired because she would not hand a man a token without a receipt. On Thursday afternoon, Derek called. "I would like to clear this up," he said. "You could start by clearing my name. Come to the district office. There may be a way to make this easier." Brightplate's district office sat above a medical supply store in a glass front building near the highway. Derek's office had no family photographs, no loose papers, no object that looked as though it had been held for sentimental reasons. There was a framed certificate on the wall and a bowl of mints on the desk. He offered Althea a chair. She stayed standing. "You have caused a lot of concern over an obsolete program," he said. "An obsolete program that appears in your renewal packet. The records are being reviewed." "By who?" he sighed. "Althea, this is a company matter. You were terminated for policy reasons. If you want to turn it into something else, you may hurt people who have nothing to do with it. Ellie Carter has something to do with it. A child has an account issue. That happens. Then why did you try to take his token?" Derek did not answer right away. He opened a drawer and placed a folder on the desk. Inside was a separation agreement. 3 months of pay. A neutral reference. Temporary continuation of health coverage. In exchange, Althea would sign a statement saying that P41 was a counterfeit item brought into the cafeteria by a student and that her termination had no connection to any legacy fund. For a second, the offer looked like relief. 3 months of pay meant rent without counting coins. It meant the prescription filled on time. It meant she could stop waking at 4 in the morning and wondering what would happen if the electric bill and the car insurance were both due in the same week. Derek watched her face. He had done this before. Not this exact thing, maybe, but he knew how to put a soft chair beside a hard decision. "You do not have to be a hero," he said. Althea looked at the papers. Then she thought of Eli folding his milk carton flat with both thumbs. "No," she said. "Think carefully." "I am." She pushed the folder back across the desk. "You made a hungry child into a bookkeeping error. I will not help you make him into a lie." Derek's mouth tightened. "Then do not expect Brightplate to protect you from what comes next." Althea picked up her bag. "You already fired me," she said. "That was the protection you had." She left the agreement unsigned. The call from Celeste came after dark. Celeste James still worked the evening cleaning shift in the Hollis kitchen. She had been at Brightplate longer than Derek and shorter than Althea. She was the kind of person who remembered a missing case of milk without checking the order sheet and who could tell from the sound of a freezer door whether it had been shut properly. "Can you meet me by the loading dock?" she asked. "Are you all right?" "No," Celeste said, "but I think I know why." The loading dock was cold and smelled of cardboard, wet pavement, and old grease. Celeste stood under the yellow security light with a small spiral notebook in both hands. "I should not be out here," she said. "Then do not give me anything you are not allowed to give." Celeste shook her head. "This is mine, I wrote it." The notebook was full of dates, delivery counts, leftovers, milk shortages, broken equipment, and small notes made in a cramped hand. Celeste said she kept it because the digital counts changed too often after Brightplate took over. She turned to a page from the previous October. P0 students. Close as used. DV there were 4 more entries like it across 3 months. P0 students. Close as used. DV purple tokens. Althea said. Celeste nodded. "He told us it was cleanup, old credits. He said the fund had been closed and every purple balance had to be recorded as used so the system would stop carrying it. I asked how a meal could be used if there was no child. He said, it is not a meal, it is an adjustment. Did he say where the money went?" Celeste turned another page. Tucked inside was a copy of a correction sheet Derek had handed her during one of the counts. It was not a confidential student report. It was an instruction for kitchen staff, printed with Brightplate's logo. Legacy adjustments to be applied to administrative recovery account. Below it was Derek's initials. Celeste's hands shook. "I kept it because it felt wrong," she said. "I did not know what to do with it. I still do not." Althea did not take the notebook from her. "You do not have to decide tonight," she said. Celeste looked toward the back door of the school. "If I wait, I will decide by doing nothing. That is still deciding." The next morning Althea, Felicia, Cora, Walter, and Celeste sat around a folding table in the Parent Association office. The table had a wobbly leg. Someone had put a pack of crackers in the center, though no one ate them. They built the chain one piece at a time. P41 in a clear pouch, photographed and dated. Nia's card from Cora's recipe tin, the original Parent Association fund log, Walter's inventory copy showing P41 held in emergency reserve, donation statements showing Nia's table money continued to arrive. Eli's guardian letter showing an account hold. The public board packet showing P41 redeemed on a closed school day. Celeste's personal account notebook and the correction sheet Derek had given staff. Finally, Felicia placed the vendor invoice beside everything else. The invoice did not use Nia's name in a dramatic way. It used a line number. Legacy designated balance transfer, administrative recovery. There was no Parent Association approval attached. Felicia had emailed the board finance office to ask whether the association had approved such a transfer. The answer had arrived that morning. No approval found. Althea read the sentence once, then again. It was not a victory. It was a door opening onto a room where the air had been bad for a long time. The board meeting was held on a Thursday evening in the Hollis auditorium. Folding chairs filled the middle of the room. Parents sat with coats over their arms. Teachers stood along the back wall. The lights buzzed overhead. On the stage, 7 board members faced the audience behind nameplates and water bottles. Derek Vaughn spoke before Althea did. He wore a dark suit instead of his cafeteria quarter zip. His voice was smooth. He explained that Brightplate had modernized outdated meal support systems. He said a former employee had made a serious allegation after a routine termination. He said the company welcomed an audit because it had nothing to hide. He did not look at Althea while he spoke. When the board chair called her name, Althea walked to the microphone carrying a plain manila folder. Her hands were cold. Her knees felt far away. But she did not hurry. She placed the folder on the table in front of the chair, Mara Holloway, and took out the token pouch. "I was fired after I gave a child a hot meal," Althea said. "That is the beginning. It is not the whole thing." She held up P41. "This token belonged to a parent-funded meal program started by my sister, Althea Grant. The vendor says it was redeemed on October 14th at 11:42 in the morning. Hollis was closed to students that day. This token was not redeemed. It was held in emergency reserve by the child's grandmother." She did not raise her voice. She did not tell the board what kind of person Derek was. She told them what the record said. Cora came next. She held Nia's card with both hands. "I did not give my grandson that token to cause a problem," she said. "I gave it to him because he was ashamed to ask for lunch. Nia told me that was what it was for. One hot meal, no questions." Walter explained the inventory. Felicia explained the parent donations and the missing approval. Celeste stood at the microphone last. For a moment, she could not make herself speak. Then she opened the notebook. "I wrote down the days we were told to mark purple balances as used," she said. "There were no students in the building on those days. Mr. Vaughn told us it was cleanup." Derek sat very still. The board finance officer, who had not been part of the public speakers, leaned toward the chair and whispered something. Mara Holloway looked down at the reconciliation page, then at the pouch containing P-41. "Mr. Vaughn," she said, "can you explain why token P-41 was recorded as redeemed on a teacher workday?" Derek adjusted his cuff. "I would need to review the underlying system entries. You signed the transition acceptance and the reconciliation summary. I signed reports prepared by my team. Did you instruct kitchen staff to enter legacy adjustments as used?" His eyes moved just once toward Celeste. "I instructed staff to reconcile obsolete balances into an administrative recovery line with no parent approval." This time, he did not answer. The room was quiet in a different way than the cafeteria had been quiet. There were no children trying to disappear. There were adults listening because the truth had finally been placed where it could not be pushed behind a drawer. Mara Holloway spoke carefully. "The board is not making final findings tonight, but we have enough reason to act immediately." She read the motion into the record. Brightplate's renewal would be paused. Relevant records would be preserved. Derek Vaughn's access to Hollis meal and finance systems would be suspended pending independent review. Payments tied to the disputed balance transfer would be held. The board would commission an outside audit and notify the parent association of its rights regarding restricted funds. The vote was unanimous. Derek gathered his papers without looking at anyone. Althea did not feel triumphant. She felt tired. Tired in the deep way people feel after carrying something too heavy for too long and finally setting it down where other people can see it. Outside the auditorium, Cora stood beside her under the yellow porch light. Nia would have made a speech. Cora said. Althea smiled for the first time that night. Nia would have made everybody else make the speech. 8 weeks later, the audit report was not dramatic either. It was pages of dates, transactions, signature lines, and corrections. It found that Brightplate had falsely reconciled the purple token batch, including P41, and transferred parent-restricted Nia's table money into its administrative recovery account without the required approval. It found that several families with unresolved meal holds had been affected while the fund still carried a balance. Brightplate's contract with Hollis ended before the next renewal cycle. Derek was dismissed from his position and referred for whatever professional and legal review followed. The story did not need to pretend that consequences happened in one clean moment. They happened in letters, meetings, payments returned, and people being asked questions they could no longer avoid. For Althea, the first practical change was a check for back pay. The second was a call from the district offering her a new role at Hollis, Community Meals Liaison. The job did not come with a grand office or a TV interview. It came with a desk near the cafeteria, a direct line to the family support office, and authority to make sure a child with an account problem was met by a person before they were met by a screen. Althea accepted. The parent association rebuilt Nia's table under shared oversight. The new system did not use secret paperwork or quiet transfers. It used a small locked fund, documented approvals, and a simple rule posted inside the cafeteria office where staff could see it. No child leaves the line hungry. Eli's account hold was cleared after his guardian paperwork was corrected. On his first Monday back after the changes, he stood at the scanner with a normal meal card in his hand. Althea was behind the register in a clean purple apron, not because she wanted to copy her sister, but because Cora had brought it from the recipe tin and said it belonged where people could see it. The scanner beeped green. Eli looked up. "Can I still get the apple?" he asked. Althea looked at his tray. Chicken sandwich, green beans, milk. "You can get 2 apples, she said. He smiled then. Not a big movie smile, just the quick, startled smile of a child who had expected the day to be harder than it was. After lunch, Cora came by with the old recipe tin. P41 had been photographed, logged, and included in the audit. The token had done its work. Althea placed it back in Cora's hand. "Keep it?" Cora asked.
"Keep it," Althea said. "It was yours before it was evidence."
Cora set it beneath Naya's card and closed the lid. Naya had not left a fortune. She had not left a house, a trust, or a secret account waiting to rescue anyone. She had left one small purple token, one handwritten rule, and the kind of promise that could survive 6 years in a recipe tin because somebody had believed it mattered. And at Hollis Elementary, a child walked through the lunch line, carrying a full tray without trying to disappear.